Hello and welcome back. As promised, I have my son's first Edwardian outfit, not to be the last. It was so much fun to make, and even more fun to watch him wear. You'll see. In researching Edwardian children's clothing for my series on turning my daughter into Samantha Parkington, I came across this article from the Ladies' Home Journal in 1907 on basically how not to dress your children. You can find the entire image in the digital collections of the New York Public Library. I had originally found it on the website for Victoriana magazine, but that page has since been archived. I used the Wayback Machine to pull it up again, and took screenshots of the much clearer images it provided. Now I was able to read the description. The first boy is in for a good time, and yet he looks the thorough little man with his bloomer trousers underneath his one-piece suit. Then look at his nice but unhappy little companion, who has made a ridiculous caricature of a man in his wee trousers so out of place on little legs, in a hat that would look better on a girl than a boy, and a blouse, collar, and tie that were surely meant for his sister. Speaking of his sister, you might notice that the little girl of approximately the same age is wearing a very similar outfit. This is because, in the early 20th century, it was still the custom to keep children under potty training age in short dresses, distinct from the long dresses they wore as babies until they started learning to walk. If you look at family portraits from this period and earlier, you may notice that all the young children look like girls to our modern sensibilities. But one way you can tell the sexes apart is by the way their hair is parted. I originally started this outfit for my son to wear to my garden party this past May, but I ran out of time to finish it. And since I can't seem to do anything without a looming deadline, I created one for myself. And I finished it this past October for a posed portrait of myself and my children to be turned into a tin-type photograph, but more on that later. If you saw my estate sale video, you may recognize this as one of the vintage fabrics I picked up. I was already planning on making this suit and had auditioned various fabrics from my stash, but nothing was quite perfect until I found this. So this is going to be Franken patterning at its finest. I am going to use the body pieces from this pattern, a little bit longer and a little bit fuller so I can get some nice deep box pleats at the front. But the sleeve from this pattern, I'm actually going to use both the short sleeve from the shirt and the long sleeve from the jacket. I'll explain in a second. Now, to ensure that that will work, I did compare the shirt back piece from the vintage pattern. I believe it's from 1940s. I don't know the exact date. I compared the shirt back, the armscye in particular, to the back piece of the modern pattern, and they're pretty close. I think close enough that it will work. This one does go a little bit wider at the shoulder, but that's fine. And for the sleeve, I'm going to use the sleeve head of the shirt sleeve pattern, because the sleeve head of the jacket is much taller and I don't want it to poof funny. But I'm going to match up the seam allowances at the top and then use the jacket sleeve for the length, because I do want long sleeves for this outfit. I am also going to use these little bloomers from this pattern. I would also like to point out the fabric I'm using is 35 inches wide, which is definitely a vintage width, and it's one of the widths that my vintage pattern calls for, so that's kind of cool. I thought at first that I would need to lengthen the main body pieces, but it turned out they were already the perfect length. I matched up the seam allowances at the corners of the two sleeve patterns I was mashing together, and cut them out as one. I folded down the top of the front to account for the yoke that I was going to add to match the inspiration image. For the yoke itself, I used the top of the same front pattern piece, which I'd folded at the lines marked for the tucks so that it would be the correct finished width. I needed to unfold the fabric in order to fit the last two pieces for the bloomers, since I was working with such a narrow width. At this point in the process, I gave up on finishing in time for my garden party and put the project aside for 5 months. Let's check back in on October Chelsea, now in the middle of construction. Okay, I really did not film any of the construction, but here it is. It's starting to actually look like something. I have the sleeves on, I have the hem done, and I have pressed and pinned the pleats in place. I also added some pleats here at the side seams, and it looks so much better than the shapeless form it had before. I'm going to tack each of these pleats and then add the belt on top. I raided my stash of trims and found some narrow navy braid, navy ribbon, and a cute ship's wheel applique. Then began the trials and tribulations of drafting the sailor collar. I went through many iterations of the design before I was happy with how it looked. And I also needed to draft the little triangle wedge in the middle. Okay, good news. I tried this on my son today and it does fit. I have put snap fastenings at the back and also where the little belt meets in the front, here at the side. And it is tacked in place on the right side and at the very front so that it will just wrap around, because I had exactly the right length of ribbon and I did not want to cut it in half and then have to line up the edges at the center back closure, so I just kept it in one piece. And this way I can always remove it. I am thinking that I left enough room in the overall, I'm not sure what to call this. It's not a dress, but it's also not a shirt. I should come up with what to call it. But anyway, I've left enough room in the body and in the sleeves. They're a little long, but that's fine because they can kind of blouse up at the wrist. So my hope is this will grow with him. So to that end, if I ever need a larger belt around the waist, I can remove this one and put on a fabric one. So that's why we have the funky snap closures there. I finished the neckline edge with just some bias tape, and now it's time to talk about the collar. Now, I want it to be a separate piece because just like the belt, I don't want a seam up the back. I want it to be one full large piece, but then of course it's not going to be able to get over his head with the triangular section in the middle. So my plan is to sandwich this edge, the raw edge that I left open when I made this little piece, into this seam allowance, stitch that up, and then close this edge over here and put snaps so that it will attach to this side. And that way it will snap on and be able to remove easily. And therefore I couldn't put it into the neckline because the neckline opens in the back and this opens in the front, so it needs to be a separate piece. And it does fit, it does match the neckline. I tried it on my son, it will work, but it is just floating right now and I want to attach it in some way. My first thought was to put snaps at like the shoulder junctions and just have it snap on there, which would be fine, but I do kind of like having the option to keep it off entirely and just wear the little suit by itself. It does look really cute on him. I took some pictures today. It's adorable. So just to make it more complicated for myself, I am going to open up this back neck seam and put in a little flap that I can then tuck into the neckline and snap on the inside so that you won't see the snaps, but then the collar can be attached securely. And that will also help with the tie that goes around underneath the collar, because it needs to wrap around the neck edge but under the collar, and so it needs to be able to exist in this space. And if I have a snap here and a snap here, that's going to interfere with the hanging of the tie. So that's going to be my plan moving forward. And of course I've also made it complicated for myself because I need to add the trim to the sailor collar, and I want to be able to tuck this raw edge inside this seam, but I want to stitch this on by machine, and I'm going to sew this up by hand, so I need to do things in a weird order because I think I'm going to need to sew at least most of this on around the 3 sides and just leave the little edge hanging. Well, it's going to be 2 rows actually, so double this. It's going to be more like that, so I'm going to need to tuck these edges in. Oh, so I need to start stitching far enough away from the edge so that I can still sandwich this in here and get that attached. Oh, this is annoying. Okay, well, this will be fun. I used the edge of the presser foot as my guide for the width between the 2 sets of trim. I'm sure there was an easier way to handle the whole sailor collar situation, but oh well. So it's a little complicated to get into and out of. There's just a lot of overlapping bits and a lot of snaps. Sewing all the snaps on was very tedious. But honestly, there were a lot of overlapping closures in extant Edwardian clothing, so I'm just gonna say it's authentic. Remember when I said I was finishing this for a photo shoot? I had scheduled it, based on the weather, for a warm Sunday in October, which also happened to be the 1-year anniversary of the day we moved into this house. So it was the perfect time to commemorate it with a tintype photograph. Victorian Photography Studio, which I will link down below, not only offers in-person photo sessions at their Gettysburg studio, but can also make a tintype from an existing photo print or even a digital file. So I contacted the owner, Dave, and he had me send him the highest resolution I had of my digital photo. So then it was a matter of choosing my favorite. There were a lot of outtakes. This is the one I eventually chose. I also asked if I could get a video of the developing process, and he was very obliging. I love watching the negative image turn into a positive. You will notice that the tintype is a mirror image of the original, which is a cool historical detail. And since we were already dressed up, I took the opportunity to get lots of good video footage of my kids in their adorable Edwardian outfits. My daughter is wearing her play dress from my Samantha series, and I'm wearing most of my Suffragist ensemble with a newly finished lace blouse waist. I will link all of the patterns and accessories I used in the description. I think my son definitely proved that this is a good outfit to play in. He had a great time. One change I do plan to make is remove the elastic from the leg bands of the little bloomers and gather the legs into just straight fabric cuffs. I will probably leave the elastic in the waist just for ease of getting the pants on and off, but he was really bothered by the elastic around his legs, so no reason to keep that if I can make something both more comfortable and more historically accurate. I do plan to use this pattern that I made up and make more little suits for him because it was so stinking cute, and I want to make like 8 more and just dress him in Edwardian clothes every single day. Probably without the sailor collar though, that was a little more than necessary. So leave me a comment with which fabric selection you think I should use to make the next one. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give me a like, and if you want to see more, definitely subscribe. And I'll see you soon. Bye.